It's 1:09 on a school night. There are entirely too many people out here on the streets, man. Y'all know I'm super anointed, so I read Eldorado Red by Donald Goines, black author from the 70s. He worked in the 70s. He was one of the very first black crime authors. I mean, it was pretty much Iceberg Slim than Donald Goines. Goines actually read Slim's autobiography in jail, and that's where he decided, you know what, I'm not gonna try to write westerns. I'm gonna just do, hood stuff he knows. He'd been in and out of jail for stuff ever since he got back from the Korean War. He got into the Korean War, I think, to get out of a jail beef. He pretended to be like 18, he was 15. He got hooked on smack over there, came back and started criming in order to get, what he needed for his fix. Was pimping, stealing, larceny, robbery, a bunch of stuff, man, like for real, in and out of jail the whole time. And then in the 70s, he was like, all right, I'm gonna start writing these things. He did it the same way Iceberg did. He had his, Iceberg had his girlfriend, or first wife, after he went straight. Goines had his little sister type them up for him. He would just dictate it to her. His first two, books were, the first one was either Horror's Son or Dope Fiend, both of which are somewhat autobiographical. I mean, he had gotten some pretty good dough off of his works because, what do you know, people like hearing black stories. And this was the time when blaxploitation started to catch off, thanks to, Sweetback. What's his name? Sweetback. Anyway, thanks to that, the whole thing took off. And so Holloway House, his publisher, also published Iceberg Slim, and boy, did they take their cut of the pie. After a while, Goines had a pretty heavy smack habit, $100 a day, and these are 1970s dollars, so $100 back then was like, it's like $500 these days. And how much is I don't even know how much heroin goes for, yo. I'm so lucky I dodged that. For real, that don't look fun at all. It's probably amazing. That's what I hear anyway. He just started pooping out books after a while just to feed that habit, just to keep more books in the market. And he published, gosh, I get 14 or something within, I think he lived for like 4 or 5 years of just constantly working. And then something happened where he got murdered. Him and his wife, I think, they got murdered for something. Who knows? It could have just been, nothing, but they got murdered. Home invasion, pow. That was in '74, I think. His final works were published in '75. And in those 2 last years, he had published, I think, 5 or so books in this last year. And so much so that Holloway House decided to publish some of those books under a pen name so that they don't flood the market and undercut their sales. So anyway, this book, Eldorado Red, definitely feels like one of those rushed books. It is one of his final books, and it feels rushed. There's no B or C plot. It's just straight ahead action. It's a good, a good flick, a good yarn. But it's, it's nothing more than that. There's not too much deeper to read into. It's a Columbo style kind of mystery because you know who done it, so it's really a how catch 'em. It's about a policy kingpin, policy being like numbers. It's a gambling thing. Policy is short for insurance policy because back in, I don't know when it started, early 20th century, it was a type of gambling using numbers in the daily paper, so the people running the racket couldn't cheat or something of that nature. Anyway, you gather your numbers and you put in like a penny or something, and then you pay out however much if you win. I don't know really how any of that works, but it was super lucrative. Like, that was the first time when black folk were really getting paid off the underground, black market. It took a while for the Italians to come in and, chop that shit. But first, like, really super kingpins in the hood came from policy rackets. And this is one of them. Eldorado Red's policy kingpin in the 40s. And the story is about him getting ripped off by his son and some of his friends, or hoods he knows. He thinks they're friends, but it's sometimes you just be stupid like that. Super nitty gritty. everything about it is disturbingly real, like 100% like, and I'm not the first person to say this, I won't be the last, but Donald Goines is just as real as it freaking gets. Like, there's a character in the first chapter, this old woman who's kind of crazy, all the way insane, I would say. And she lives in a roach-infested house, and she's talking to herself. She's looking out windows, and she calls everything Jesus. Like, she sees Jesus everywhere. And there's a thing about, you know, when you I don't know how to say this, when you lose, when you lose your mind on drugs, you can go super religious, and you'll see this sometimes where people go super religious and they scream about Jesus all the time in anger. They invoke God as some kind of wrathful protection, or they go the whole other way and they just become absolutely demonic. And they're, you know, I've seen black cats with swastikas on everything because they just represent Satan so deeply. Or you can think it's the government or something. But anyway, this woman is calling everything Jesus, and it was just like, oh God, you know, just a little close to home there. A lot of stuff in here was really close to home in this book. But like I said, I didn't find anything too deep in it. But if you want to see like a hood action story, I don't think you can go wrong with any of Goines' work. I've read this and I've read Horse Son, and Horse Son is kind of impossible to recommend to people because it's really just, you know, like following a rapist around who's incapable of telling the truth to anyone, including himself. So, you know, I can't really recommend it to you, but it's a good book. You know, it's a very good yarn. Again, super close to home, very, you know, very good read. Better than Eldorado Red. I gave Horse Son, I think, 4 stars or 3 stars. Eldorado Red wasn't as good. Anyway, here we go. So skip over here if you want to get to my final thoughts like Springer. So Buddy is Red's son, and he's real salty at Red because his mother said that Red abandoned them with nothing, even though, you know, he didn't. But Buddy's already brainwashed to hate his father, even though he works for him, right? He's like 18 or something, and so he decides, oh, I'm gonna rip off my father. Buddy works for his dad's racket, cleaning out the houses where they count the money and everything. So he knows where all the money is. Everyone else doesn't know. He's as close as he can because he's blood. You can trust him, right? So he gets some of his hood friends, Samson, Tubby, and Danny, to do some robberies, more than 2 robberies on the houses where they collect the dough. Buddy thinks that he's like the ringleader of this gang, but he's not. Samson's the real de facto leader. He's got the balls to do it. He's got a cool head, and he's super strong. Tubby's pretty scared. Danny is a dope fiend, and he's pretty wily. And Samson, he's stupid. He doesn't realize the class difference between him and his friends because Buddy is Red's son. So if it's discovered that he's the one doing the robberies, he might get a slap on the wrist. The other 3s will be killed. This doesn't occur to Buddy. Not a lot of things occur to Buddy. But it's clear in their conversations that Buddy doesn't understand where they all sit. He thinks he's cool, he thinks he's in, but he's very much not. But they go for it. They go to the first house, and they hit it for like 16 G's, and these are 16,000 1970s dollars, so, you know, this is nothing to sneeze at. He convinces all of them, come on, let's hit this other spot because it's now or never, and they're happy with what they got. They don't want to go back and put their neck on the line again, but it makes sense, don't it? So Red hears about the first spot, and he's livid. And Red is a pretty, you know, calm, collected guy. You know, he's got most of his life taken care of. He doesn't really touch any of the money. He's not really involved in the process anymore. But after the stash gets hit, he goes in there and gets one of his muscle friends, Copperhead, to come up and help him do some investigating because, I mean, what are you gonna do, call the cops? So they go to the second house. When they go in there, Samson, Tubby, and Danny, there's a couple old heads and they're counting money, and there's one guy in the bed with some Frosty, and they all come out, and she's super fine. And I think Tubby's just like a zombie tries to like finger her, and everyone's like compelled to rape her because I guess it's the 70s. And so, but then Samson's like, yo, stop that mess, we gotta get the heck out of here. And so they get whatever money they get and they bounce. Red goes over there. Copperhead gets his buddy Tank to come up from vacation, and they start taking note of anybody who knew about the spots. And of course, like an idiot, there's only one person who knows about both spots. But these guys are like, we can't just tell Red. I mean, because if they tell Red that his buddy, he's gonna be like, oh well, let him go. I mean, for real, Buddy could have been like, yo, Red, can I have $50,000? And Red would have been like, sure, son, I love you. But Buddy's mind is so poisoned by hate that he's like, no, I want to hurt you. You know what I'm saying? Off his own lies, and they confront that too. After he rips both spots, he goes up to Red at his house, and this is after Red goes to the second house, finds the dame that was there, and he falls in love with her, but he doesn't like try to rape her. He falls in love with this chick, like a square, like Hallmark. Like both of them are some Hallmark. Like she doesn't have a pimp. She's her own woman. I mean, she's you know, freelance chick. It struck me as so saccharine that I didn't believe it. It didn't make any sense to me until I realized that these people are so deep in the street that if they had any actual love vibration in them, perhaps the only reference in their mind would be that saccharine, would be that untested ideal that you feel when you're in elementary school and you crush on someone, you know? Maybe they were putting their faith so blindly in that with each other. You know what I mean? That's the only way it makes sense in my mind, but you know, what the heck do I know about any of that? So anyway, she goes to his spot, you know, Red's house, you know, he's decked out. Buddy comes up there and tries to mac her because all of Red's girlfriends, he always runs with, you know, little girls. Anytime Buddy comes around, he just snatches him up because he's younger and prettier. So this is the first time Red has actually seen that happen. He's heard, you know, out the corner of his ear people talk about it, but now he's seen it and feels like deep betrayal, even though she wasn't, you know, going for it. They have a big argument, and he's like, you take the car and get the hell out of my life. I don't want to see you anymore. And he's all like, well, you left me and my mama, yada yada yada. And she's like, is this? And the girl's like, is this true? He's like, no. He has receipts of all the times he has sent her $100 a month. You know what I'm saying? But he wasn't trying to hear that. Buddy wasn't trying to hear that because he don't, you know what I mean, believe anything. He's so into hate. So it's that. And the rest of the book, for real, is like a buddy, like two BFFs, Tank and Copperhead, trying to track down Buddy's friends. They get in contact with this drug dealer, and I'm gonna do us both a solid here because I don't remember all of the details, and the details are the fun part, I suppose. And also, there's nothing deeper to the story than the story itself. So I'm just gonna leave the rest of it open and say, definitely check it out if you wanna have some fun reading a hardcore book. Yeah, I know usually when I finna read that, I assume you may finna read that and I spoil it for you, but I feel kind of bad when there's no deeper meaning, you know what I'm saying? I did find something else, more about myself when I finished reading this book. I felt this like personal understanding about why I read hood stories, and it has more to do with me validating myself as like knowing like street code, understanding like the hood or whatever you want to call it. I dealt a lot with being a buster when I was living on the street with zero street smarts and you know, very little common sense to boot. That insecurity was, I guess, silent for a while. I'm sure it came out the side of my neck, you know, all the time, but I didn't really realize it until after I read this book, and I felt, you know, the entire time, I'm like, yo, I see myself there. I see myself in Buddy a hell of a lot. And I was just like, yeah, man, I see this, I know it. To the point where like I said, I felt like there wasn't that much deeper in with it that I could actually glean from it, which is saying enough. It's kind of dumb, really, to want to have any, to be validated with any kind of identity. I mean, especially like a hood identity, I mean, what does it really get you, right? All it gets you is more people trying to test you to see what you really know, what you're really made of, to like, to be on top of some hierarchy and get people's respect or something. But once you're there, what does that really get you? Just more people trying to test you? Or I guess best scenario, you just get like friends. But again, it's the same. If you get hardcore hood friends, or if you get Buster Square friends, there are things that you can and can't say. There's things that you should and shouldn't do in polite company. And so there's very, very little functional difference, other than, sometimes you do things that aren't necessarily kosher. Really, if you can live straight, you should. Shouldn't take me to tell you that. I guess I'm telling myself. Well, anyway, that's my, I guess, final thought in terms of how I interpret the book. And there's mad people on Booktube that read this thing. I know the homie June Spinks did it. I think his name's June Spinks for Integrity. If you haven't seen his channel, give it a look. It's a lot of like real life stuff, like actual, human being stuff. But he's read every single Donald Goines book and done a video on him. And him and his family break it down. It's a lot of fun. It's like sitting in on a family meeting. I don't know, I love that shit. So go ahead and give that a look-see. But yeah, you know what time it is, right? No, yeah, that's not how we end these. I end them by saying bye. Yeah.